Here with Todd Bumgarner. He is the planting pastor of Two Pillars Church, coming soon to Lincoln, Nebraska. And we're going to talk with him a little bit today about his vision for Two Pillars and what it means to plant a church in Lincoln, Nebraska. So before we go there, though, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and what is your connection with Lincoln?
Yeah, well, my name is Todd Bumgarner. We grew up in Nebraska. Both my wife and I grew up about an hour outside of Lincoln in a small town called Geneva, and went to school here in town for 4.5 years. Got my undergrad degree in electrical engineering, and that's kind of where it started. That's where Lincoln came into our lives at. 7 years ago, graduated, got married, moved to St. Louis, and have been down there ever since.
Very good. So, from what I understand, Two Pillars Church is a part of the Acts 29 network of churches. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so tell me about Acts 29. What is Acts 29, and why are you a part of that network of churches?
Yeah, sure. So where we're at right now with Acts 29 is we are a candidate plant within Acts 29, which means that there's some conditions that have to be met before we're full-blown plant within Acts 29. Acts 29 is basically a trans-denominational network of churches, planting churches that plant churches that plant churches. And so Acts 29 comes from this whole idea of there's 28 chapters in the book of Acts, and the 29th is like an extension of us continuing to live out the mission and the storyline of Acts, continuing to take it forward. And so Acts 29 doesn't exist as like sort of this big, monstrous central organization. It's more of a peer-to-peer network of churches committed to seeing gospel-centered, missionally focused churches planted in the city centers across the U.S. They're starting to do some work in other parts of the world as well, and they're really starting to get some traction. And Acts 29 really seems to be a part of what we see as a resurgence of the gospel in the States.
Very good. So tell me, and I understand you're in St. Louis right now, and so what brings you back to Lincoln?
Yeah, God brings us back to Lincoln. We were kind of hanging out in St. Louis in a comfortable lifestyle, working my job, and God just sort of started redirecting me, and it kind of started laying on my heart that engineering wasn't exactly where He wanted me to be at for the rest of my life, and that was confusing. It was hard. But slowly over time He began to shape me towards church planting in Lincoln in particular. A lot of that is fueled from a passion that I have for this city. As I lived here for 4.5 years, people that I interacted with before I became a Christian, people that I know who are like me, people who I don't know who are like me, that God has sort of been at work orchestrating some of the ways that we can be a part of His work and reaching out into their lives. And part of that has to do with calling men to be biblically masculine men. Some of that has to be with just other sorts of things that I think that God has equipped us for, to His glory, not to our own, but just sort of taking stock of who God's made me and where He's made me and where He's going to be the most effective through my life as a vessel for Him.
As I walk around Lincoln and downtown, or as I drive around Lincoln, I see a lot of churches, and I have friends and acquaintances that go to churches all over the city. Why does Lincoln need another church? And I guess this boils down to the question, why plant another church in Lincoln, Nebraska?
I'll tell you the last thing that Lincoln needs is another church or a church to come to town, show up, set up shop on the corner, open our doors and say, here we are, 9 and 11, we're another option on the smorgasbord for you to choose church from. What's needed is a gospel-centered, missionally focused church in the heart of the city. As you look at the city of Lincoln, in large part, what's happened is a lot of the big church growth and a lot of the main churches have moved to the outskirts of town for some practical reasons and for some other not so practical reasons. But what that's left is sort of a vacuum in the city center, and there's some great churches that are doing some great work down here that we're looking to partner with and lock arms with for the good of the gospel. But at the same time, there's just a lot of work to do. And so, as we talk about Two Pillars Church, and we talk about maybe what that looks like, how that looks different or in conjunction with some existing churches, we're just excited to be a gospel-centered church in the city, focused on loving the city and really living out the gospel. And rather than being a church people can come to, seeing or building as a church, really putting our money where our mouth is and actually living out the gospel, being the church in the community.
Very good. So if I'm someone who is interested in what you have to say, maybe I want to hear a little bit more about Two Pillars Church. What can I do to come into contact with more information?
Yeah, well, we just got a website up called twopillarschurch.com, so number 2pillarschurch.com. And from there you can get a link to our blog, Project Two Pillars, is sort of the name that we've dubbed the project of planting the church and getting it up off the ground. So you can come to twopillarschurch.com, you can go to project2pillars.com. We've just got up a fan page on Facebook. You can find us there, and we're also on Twitter. So those are great ways to get in contact with us. Through those avenues, especially on the Project Two Pillars blog, there's a way to contact us and get more information from us too.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Todd.